from one method to the next. Speech by Grigori Petrovich-Grabovoi at a web conference on coronavirus on 19th of March 2020. Greet the meeting participants on my behalf. Now I want to offer to master the technologies of protection and cure against coronavirus detected in China 2019 and in accordance with my teaching about God, I propose now to master, using one's own consciousness, the methods of protection against this type of coronavirus infection, then the methods of neutralizing the coronavirus in case of infection, and the methods of curing diseases that can be caused by this coronavirus. As the methods of protection against infection with coronavirus, you can use your consciousness on the aspect that God created consciousness that interacts actively with both external reality and, in fact, with the physical tissue of the organism. Therefore, the first method, in this case, is to separate the structure of the external physical reality where the coronavirus is present from the structure where consciousness is directly connected to the physical body of human. And in this case, the technical action is the concentration of consciousness, first on the right knee joint, then on the left knee joint, and then it is necessary to distribute consciousness so that, as if from the knee joints, to look at your brain and clearly perceive your brain. And then, during breathing, try to perceive that breathing is involved in the saturation of the brain with oxygen. And in this method, with your physical breathing, you constantly turn off the structure of external reality where the coronavirus is located. And this method can be also used to disinfect some external environmental objects from coronavirus. To do this, it is necessary to send two intersecting rays coming from the knees to the side of these objects. So, how would you explain it to someone who is absolutely new with this method?
Okay. If I get it right, first we have to concentrate on the knees, and in connection with the brain and breathing, the way the brain saturates with the breathing with oxygen, right?
Yeah, the first right knee joint, then the left knee joint.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Try to perceive or look from the knee joints upwards into your brain and realizing that with my breathing I can saturate a lot of oxygen within my brain and my body, and therefore, there is no place for any viruses. I perceive the method like that. And I continue. The second method is that you need to use the brain function of your own brain, of the physical matter of the brain, for protection against coronavirus infection. Well, and in principle, from any other type of virus. In this case, it is necessary to consider how information is transferred at the level of electromagnetic waves from one part of the brain to another. Well, since the brain, in terms of the creation of human by God, has contact with all external reality, infinite contact. And moreover, this point is basically located, as it were, in the geometric center of the brain of this area. It is necessary to perceive by the effort of consciousness, or as if to look at your brain from above, and it is necessary to place, by an effort of will, the wave that goes from one point to another, from one area of the brain to another area, approximately to the geometric center of the brain. Well, in some cases, it can be useful to bring it closer to the area of the pituitary gland of the brain, and to trace how this wave is rising infinitely high up in the level of contact of the brain with all external reality. And on this infinitely remote area, as on a poster, on a kind of a flat protection, it is just necessary, by an effort of will, to single out the coronavirus information and delete it. So if, for example, the first method has the property and, when working with it, has quite a long activity in the control, for example, a day, 2, and 3, it is advisable to use the second method more often, well, that is, the method where the biological activity of the brain with the interaction of consciousness are used. So if I have to repeat it in my own words, I would say it like, with my consciousness, I try to observe the waves going through the physical matter of my brain, as looking with my consciousness or as looking from above. And I try to find out where is the geometrical center of these waves, or the geometrical center of the brain, and or I try to concentrate on the pituitary gland, and from there, as it is originally from God created, the interaction with the whole external reality. So from the geometrical center of my brain, I go to the infinity of interaction my brain is having with the whole external reality. And there I try to see, like a poster or a flat screen, where I separate the coronavirus from the whole reality and delete it. Would you agree with this summary, or?
Yeah, it's very simple, basically, right?
Yes. For us.
When you were talking, I immediately felt the pressure in pituitary gland is in the forehead, right?
I think it's more in the middle of the brain.
Oh, I felt the pressure here in the forehead, not in the front, but little in the back.
You're good. Something is going on.
Definitely.
So I will switch to another mode of the 5-mode medical device of Grigori Grabovoi. The 5th mode, with a function of protect against infection from coronavirus that's been identified in China, the function to cure diseases caused by that coronavirus. So further, the third method in the method of neutralizing the coronavirus in the case if the coronavirus infection has already occurred. Here, in the third method, it is necessary to use, in principle, a fairly general technology that applies for infection with any kind of virus in general. It is necessary to try to introduce the light of your consciousness at a very high speed, as if to bring it sharply into your body and moreover between cells, and those places where, for example, the foci of infection exist can periodically manifest as a certain glow, usually as a yellowish tint. Specifically, when it comes to the 2019 nCoV coronavirus, there are also pinkish shades in the intercellular space. And it is necessary, by an effort of will, to separate this glow, which causes namely light, the optical coronavirus sections, from the cells, bring them into the space near the physical body, so that this space does not come into contact with human skin. At the same time, as is clear, this control in all methods can be done both with yourself and to help other people as well. And in this space that is near you, it is necessary to select the information of this particular coronavirus so that it is on the inner surface of this space, for example, similar to a parallelepiped. And it is necessary by the effort of consciousness to increase the pressure in this space so that the functions of the coronavirus are stopped, neutralized. For example, at pressures above 11 atmospheres, the functions of viruses are mostly stopped, especially if this pressure is introduced specifically into the genetic structure of the virus. Further, staying by a local section of consciousness inside this form that is similar to a parallelepiped, it is necessary to see, as it were, the close to the logical kind of such a reasonable component of the action of the particular coronavirus that is located there and was isolated from the body. That is, to try to understand what exactly is the program of this specific and material coronavirus regarding you, how it affects specifically your events, your structure of your body. Well, that is, what exactly does it want to influence on, since you have some plans, some future events. You should try here to see the branches of its influence on the structure of future events. Well, since this technology in principle applies to any in general system of viruses, to any type of virus, you can use information from the collective consciousness on the experience of overcoming a virological lesion where other people have overcome, even with other types of viruses. At the same time, it is necessary also to understand here that this form, similar to a parallelepiped, is always somewhere in front of you, but does not come in contact with your physical skin in terms of control. When you will try to understand the logic of the action, the program logic of the virus, here begins an impulse of abrupt leave of this information from the diagnostic structure will begin. You should try to highlight some areas in the space that were as if in front of the trajectory of the future movement of the virus, and try to introduce a fraction of your consciousness into these areas. Well, so that the virus, as it were, could not downplay the possibilities of diagnosing its action and fix its dynamics at a distance from the body. So let's go back to the beginning of this method. So would you like to summarize it or say it in your words, or what's still in your memory about it?
This one I didn't understand all of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll try.
Yes.
So it's a very general technology and applies for infection with any kind of virus in general. And we just introduce the light of our consciousness at a very high speed, as if to bring it sharply into our body, and moreover between cells. And there are places maybe where the virus is within the body, and we can find these areas because they are yellowish tint. There's a certain glow of this virus, coronavirus, also pinkish shades in the intercellular space. And by an effort of will, we just separate this glow. And we bring it outside our body, and we separate it. There is a certain distance from this glow of the coronavirus from our body. And further on, we bring it into a specific form, the parallelepiped, where we bring a pressure into it, especially into the genetic structure of the virus above 11 atmospheres, where the functions of viruses are mostly stopped. If you do not know what a parallelepiped is, you can also go to the work of Grigori Grabovoi, the Unified System of Knowledge. Or just name it like that. I bring this information, this glow, yellow and pinkish tint shades into the form of a parallelepiped, near or in front of my body, and there is no contact with my skin. And therefore, I, with my consciousness, clearly see and feel, I know that there is isolation between the information of the virus outside of my body in the parallelepiped from myself. But now, even much more, and maybe this is the most important for a lot of people around the world, we should also try to understand what exactly is the program of this virus regarding us, how it affects specifically our events. So what's the influence on our plans for the future? And therefore, because this technology is a very general technology for any system of viruses, we can also use the information of the history in the collective consciousness, where a lot of nations and populations were able to overcome the influence of viruses and other diseases. So life went on, everything became normal again. And we can use this historical information in the collective consciousness also to have hope and peace within us. the certainty that everything is going to be fine again. But the last part of the method, I'm also not very sure. Would you like to read it again?
Of course. When you will try to understand the logic of the action, the program logic of the virus, here begins. An impulse of abrupt leave of this information from the diagnostic structure will begin. You should try to highlight some areas in the space that were as if in front of the trajectory of the future movement of the virus, and try to introduce a fraction of your consciousness into these areas. Well, so that the virus, as it were, could not downplay the possibilities of diagnosing its action and fix its dynamics at a distance from the body.
Ah, yeah, I remember. So it is also connected with the next part. In this case, I have now told about those viruses that, after you increased the pressure inside this parallelepiped-like shape, the majority of viruses is neutralized, but some can still move, and I described the second additional method in relation to them, that is, of stabilization and neutralization. And this means that the virus neutralized inside this kind of parallelepiped starts to fall away from the walls and tend to the center of this parallelepiped, decreasing in size all the time. These areas of it are combined. And here you should try to understand how God, the creator of the whole world, created the world in such a way that if, for example, the question would arise in relation to God, how should he neutralize some negative matter of information that is somewhere near him, that is where he would put this matter, this information? Well, the most logical and, in general, from the point of view of spiritually simple action, it would be to make this neutralized from the negative kind of neutralized such a piece of information that is no longer dangerous, to make it just the beginning of some other action. And here you can just, by an effort of will, make it so that the data that were about the virus starting to concentrate are shrinking while moving to the center, so that there isn't just a virus in the center of this parallelepiped, so that it as if scattered on the way to the center. And thus, it turns out that you get a level of space cleaned from the virus in front of you. And since it is removed from the organism, it is no longer dangerous for you. That is, the body is cleared of the virus. Quite often, the organism can be cleaned very quickly, literally in one control, to clean from the virus. So here, for me, this described that it just disappears. The information of the virus just disappears. That's quite easy for me to understand, because my access or my understanding of viruses is, first of all, in the collective consciousness. It's like a concentration of information, not actually a very material structure. I know it is written here, material structure, but For me, first of all, it's just an idea. And this is easy, right? From the wall inside the parallelepiped, it goes into the center of this form, and it becomes even as a just more and more less, just disappears.
Yes, true.
But what about the events in our future, our plans? And it's correlated, I think, to the next part of the text. Because it is logical when we remember the text, the works of Grigori Grabovoi, that just creative information and events are eternal. Things which are not creatively and helpful for humanity, they don't have the eternity within them. And further, I want to offer the fourth method of training, when it is necessary to normalize the body if there are diseases that can be caused by this virus. This method, in principle, as a whole, consists in the fact that you should just perceive the norm of your entire physical body. And in this case, even then, you can get rid of some local consequences that can be left inside the physical body. To do this, it is necessary to consider the distance effect of the virus and to pay attention to the fact that there is no factor of infinity of action in this information of the virus, which is important. By the way, in this way, the virus at the level of such instinctive reactions is quite quickly recognized. So everything which is not eternal within our body can be recognized quickly. It's like scanning our body, right? Next, the area where the infinite phase in general is missing in the development should be considered in terms of how it touches, for example, your physical body, if it touches, or generally speaking, how it spreads. And here, we should understand that not every virus infection causes any consequences in human tissue, and in that part where a contact with the tissue is possible, it is necessary to replace the information where there is no interaction factor with the infinity of the virus, replace it with an infinite fraction. Due to the fact that the virus has significant external dynamics, it is necessary to apply some kind of specific action that is approaching this area where it is necessary to make the replacement and then make a quick replacement. And you can, for example, use symbols such as bringing consciousness in the form of a symbol of the number 8 to this point, and then very quickly turning to the right side, place the figure 8 in a horizontal position, that is, make the infinity symbol. And here it will be just, well, I want to finish where here the presentation of the methods. Thank you very much for your attention and active participation, as I see in cognition. In obtaining methods of using consciousness, try to apply as actively as possible to yourself, to others. You can transfer these methods. They are quite simple for any person. So is it clear to you what is meant with replacing with the 8?
I don't understand this. To the right side of the figure.
Hmm. So,
Okay. I understand.
yeah.
I understand.
And how would you describe it with your own words? Maybe then I have it also in another clear vision when I hear it from you.
Yeah. So, I don't know how would I put it in simple words. Because the virus has outside, is working from the outside, right? And we just need to replace with consciousness, bringing it in a form of a symbol 8, and then turning it to the right side in a infinity symbol, and that will be it, because the virus will have an infinity fraction then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I get
So,
it right?
and this replacement happens on the possible tissue where the information could be in contact with us, right? And in that part where a contact with the tissue is possible, it is necessary to replace the information where there is no interaction factor with the infinity of the virus. Replace it with an infinite fraction. So we don't want to be in contact with something which is not infinite.
Yes, that's right.
And therefore we use the 8, we bring it to this point, and we very quickly replace this information with the symbol of infinity, the 8 in the horizontal position, and therefore have like a protection suit around us, so our skin being eternal.
Exactly.
Super, thank you. Would you like to continue? Do you still have time?
Yeah, I have a lot of time. And in about 10 o'clock, I have one webinar, so I would like maybe half an hour before to do some things, maybe eat something. How much more is this long?
There are just a few questions then, but I can show you. Let's have a look. We are here. And so, yeah, not so much. It's up to us. It's up to you, as you like it.
Okay. And I would like to add that some time ago, in April 2002, I gave a forecast for the virological danger in Eurasia. I would like to add to report just one component concerning what was written there. It was about the second wave that might be more dangerous virologically. Therefore, it is necessary to apply this very method that I have just reported and to apply the other ones from my teachings. So that firstly, not to allow the coronavirus to mutate, not to give the opportunity to return, in principle, back in the form of the second wave. Well, I would like to say that now I, working in the partnership with my foundation, the company, Grigori Grabovoi, how do you call this in English?
I
The,
think it's DOO.
okay, DO. We are now engaged in the creation of technologies based on the operation of devices and some medicines. The action of devices and medicine can be studied due to consciousness, then by concentration of consciousness. The same can be done. It is possible not just to do the same if you are in the initial period of studying this mechanism. It is still possible to strengthen the action of instrument systems and medicines, and then the learning of the process will be faster, as it happens in the organism, in order to strengthen again the action just of consciousness. Therefore, I invite everyone to take part as actively as possible temporarily in the areas the fund is engaged in. The company Grigori Grabovoi, DOO, and similar companies which, in general, are now engaged in the fight against coronavirus, or generally with any type of virus, the bacterial systems which are dangerous to the organisms. Since the realization exactly of eternal life for everyone, to ensure that there are no diseases, and so that there is eternal harmonious development, both personal and by mutual assistance of each one in the complex processes. Well, this is where I finished my part. Thank you very much again for your attention, for participating in the overall process. I wish you all harmonious eternal life. And as for the questions, most likely this is necessary if there are any questions. I, if only I will answer some 3 or 4 short questions. Given that the systematic work of the groups has already begun and will continue in the same rhythm twice a day, and the groups are quite large, following the technology, at what approximately timelines it will be possible to notice that a downward trend will already begun for Italy. The fact is that it is necessary to take into account here the already established practice, such as China. It is already curtailed there. Therefore, I believe that with active work, it is necessary to set controls to achieve a significant result every 2 weeks. Firstly, then is to set control not when, but to set in such a way as 2 weeks, and it is necessary to achieve results during these 2 weeks. And then the main activity, I believe, should be curtailed for a month. Well, this applies to Italy, that a qualitative change should happen, that is, a decline in infection. In other countries of the world, I believe there may even be a faster decline in infection. I believe that it is also necessary to work in other countries of the world carrying out the control. Why is it faster there? Well, because firstly there are fewer affected people. Well, this is a task in the control, which in general is superimposed on the forecast phase, and in addition, it is still necessary to do the following. And it is still necessary to do the following. Yes, First and foremost, the first control vector should be directed to ensure that there are no severe consequences for the organism or the virus. And with the second vector, it is possible to introduce precisely the decrease in the spreadability, such a coordination for the control. You can ask another question, one or two more. To interpret correctly the current situation on such a global scale as the conditions under which humanity is called upon, and able to show maximum mobilization for the breakthrough in the spiritual development of consciousness, two good changes await us as a result of all this. That is, will the living conditions change, even perhaps radically? Well, that's a kind of a prophecy there. They are talking about completely new conditions for the development of civilization. Well, in this case, I think, first of all, each person should think about himself and about the whole society at the same time in this situation. Of course, it is not very desirable having problems and overcoming them, generally speaking. The best way is when there is simply harmonious normal development without any stressful problematic and especially those situations that threaten health and life. This is the main task. Well, that is, I think, is the main task of control, which must be followed constantly. That is, it is necessary that the norm always exists. But since we already have encountered in practice, let's say, such a situation, we naturally have to develop sometimes some radical measures, radical actions from the point of view of internal and external actions. This is the situation that needs to be dealt with the most quickly by the most active methods. And somehow, well, actually, adding some other context to this situation may not be even necessary. The main thing is just quickly and effectively everything returns to normal. Although, of course, there is such a general global meaning in that to overcome. It is necessary to use these levers that would, for example, be most effective, that they can really be very special in this situation. Well, in principle, in that very forecast, in April 2002, I recommended how, what the agreements between the states should be in order to counteract possible global viruses infections. Therefore, it is often easier just to carry out the recommended predictive driven the face the information and prevent any problems. But since we already encountered it, then we'll have to solve it this way. Since the task of my teaching is that in any case people should survive and live eternally. I think that this is where I finish the answers to the questions. Once again, thank you all for your attention. I wish you harmonious, eternal life, more success, all the best to all. Goodbye. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Would you like to add something?
All occur, and the fact that I wasn't sleeping all night, I'm feeling so great after I read this. I can't believe
Okay, super.
it.
Yeah, it's good to hear because this is also the science behind Grigori Grabovoi. There is the so-called bias signal, not? Or the normalization of bias
Yeah.
signals of our thoughts happening when we read his works. It's the structuring of our consciousness.
Every
Yes.
every every learning is a structure of a consciousness from him. Every time you read, educate anything from him, you are bringing it into norm everything, and it's fucking great.
Hi everyone, it's me, Christina.
Hello there.
I came